When the flaws in the laws set to protect us all are revealed, there's only two options: stay broken or begin to heal.
I am tired of America treating us as if we are dogs on the street.
And we know healing can be just as hard as being broken. Just ask Breonna Taylor's mother, who continues to fight with wounds still wide open.
What's happened, particularly with blacks in America, is a 400-year-plus scenario. It's not new. We have adapted and adopted many different behaviors to cope.
But healing isn't just a trendy hashtag with blue likes and red hearts. It's actions leading to real change. Yes, removing statues is a start. Are you ready for your part?
Casey Goodson Jr. shot and killed on the front steps of his home carrying Subway sandwiches, returning home from a dentist appointment.
The preliminary autopsy report shows Goodson Jr.'s cause of death is multiple gunshot wounds to the torso.
The Franklin County coroner says his manner of death is homicide, meaning Goodson died at the hands of another.
When the Franklin County Sheriff's Office was assisting the U.S. Marshals on an operation in the area.
Police say the deputy told them that Goodson drove past them waving a gun, and after following him, both parties got out of their vehicles and the deputy shot Goodson when he refused to drop his weapon.
However, Goodson's family says that is not what happened. His death is being investigated by the FBI, Department of Justice, and Columbus Police. And 3 days after the shooting, CPD referred the case to the BCI. It returned the case to the department. I spoke with Goodson's mother and family attorney about that and more.
I want murder charges. I want his badge taken. I want him prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law.
What's your prayer at night and through the day and to keep you going?
I just ask God for strength. I just need strength. I gotta focus on the justice piece. And that's where my head is. I can't focus on the loss of my son. I refuse to focus on planning a funeral right now. I can't even wrap my head around it. I can't touch it. I can't. My only focus is justice. I eat, breathe, and sleep justice, and I won't stop. I won't. I can't. Casey was just a good kid. I mean, to know Casey is to love Casey. I mean, he had a good spirit, a good heart. He loved his siblings. He loved animals.
What's the take, feeling, or emotions that even when the case was presented to the BCI, that the BCI said, well, just a moment, we can't take this case?
You know, the BCI should have been here from the beginning, and they made that clear in their statement. They can't take over an investigation once you've collected the scene. But so many questions remain, and this family is being traumatized and traumatized and traumatized each and every day, that those questions remain unanswered, and they deserve better.
You said the only threat my son was he was a black man. Tell me more about that.
He was a black man. He was a black man in the path of a racist, quote unquote, so-called deputy, who became a target because the coward that took my son's life took his voice. And my son needs a voice. I have to be his voice. He has to be heard. He was murdered in cold blood.
I get so upset when someone asks why Casey had a gun. Casey wanted to protect his family. Casey that was his right.
But if my son did have a gun, he's licensed to carry.
Am I correct that he wanted to be an instructor?
He did. He did. He wanted to be a CCW instructor as well as own his own fleet of trucks. He had his CDL license. So
the next step is to continue to push, for justice for Casey. We want people around the country to stand up and rally around this.
My son was murdered. This is not. It wasn't by accident at all. Like, if it was us, we would be in jail by now. But because it's an officer, I have to wait months upon months and weeks for my son's death to be avenged.
And just to be clear, Jason Meade is a Franklin County Sheriff's deputy. His attorney, in fact, released a statement today claiming Goodson waved a gun at the deputy. So far, no investigations have backed that claim. Attorney Walton plans to have a private medical examination done on Goodson's body. Recent protests in Columbus followed high-profile cases of police killing black people throughout the country. The rallies helped fuel the push for a civilian review board in our city. In November, voters took to the polls, issued to pass with more than 74% of the vote, clearing the way for the CRB, which comes with subpoena power. One civil rights organization says this is a start.
The root cause is the way that we are engaging law enforcement to handle every crisis or call or need in our community, when really we should be investing in community supports that are appropriate and have professional trained staff to handle those needs.
Disability Rights Ohio released a report calling for changes in policing. Read it and those recommendations right now on NBC4i.com/The Conversation.
So all of this is hard to sit with. It's heavy right now, so heavy that it's affecting our black communities in ways that are unimaginable. And for so many out there, it's a pain they just cannot live with. Our very own Colleen Marshall has more.
Harvard researchers tell us black people are 3 times more likely to be killed by police than whites. But there is alarming new research about young black people killing themselves. I talked to Reggie Robinson. He's with Health Recovery Services, providing counseling services in 6 southeastern Ohio counties.
It's been absolutely traumatic for our clients.
COVID-19 on top of substance abuse disorders, anxiety, depression. Each day, 5 Ohioans commit suicide. Even before the pandemic, suicides were trending up.
From 2014 to 2018, suicides increased 24% generally among whites and 53.8% among African Americans.
White Ohioans have just over 15 suicides per 100,000 people. Black Ohioans just over 7. But those numbers flip for black and white teenagers. 4 suicides compared to 15.
Are there pressures on young black students that the rest of the student population might not be dealing with?
Absolutely. There are a number of health disparities and risk disparities when you talk about African Americans in general compared to white Americans, and certainly that seems to be exacerbated among young people.
And the new numbers are startling.
June 2019, suicide deaths among black females aged 13 to 19 rose 182%.
Wow.
Yeah, between 2001 and 2017. For males, it rose 60%. But the single highest at-risk group are black males 5 to 12. They're completing suicide at higher rates than any other racial or ethnic group. And I said ages 5 to 12.
Robinson says prevention and education are key.
The black family is alive and well, contrary to some of the myths that are out there. And, we need to equip black parents with the information that they need to intervene and to, parents are the original prevention specialists. And so utilizing them, giving them those skills and those resources is something that we need to do.
And you can find information on all those resources at NBC4i.com.
Thank you, Colleen. That's important information there, and obviously a topic not discussed often enough. Well, once again, some of the NBC4 family came together for an honest discussion about race in America. Here's a portion of that discussion.
I think there is a position of a lot of people who were going, I was taught a lot of things that were wrong. Mm-hmm. And I think there is a little bit of a walking on eggshells for a lot of folks going, how should I be? How shouldn't I be?
But I like to hear from those who are open to the process. And it's not just white people. Black people have to be open to it as well, to continue to have this conversation where we're all vulnerable and we learn from each other. Nobody's right, nobody's wrong, but we gotta change. Yeah. And that's what I'm most hopeful about, is having those conversations where people change.
But it is great for us to be vulnerable if we are getting somewhere. It does no good for me to sit here and pour out my feelings and how I feel and different experiences, some things that I haven't shared and talked about before.
Right.
if we're not making progress with it.
This has made me wake up a little bit more. I think I've become a little bit complacent over the years because I've been dealing with this for a long, long time. And I thought that, you know, this is, you know, kind of just the way it is. And there wasn't going to be a lot of change. I didn't realize that we could have, you know, so many people all thinking the same way and all trying to do something to make a change. They're gradually coming around, or they've suddenly come around, but there is a lot of change going on.
And I think it's important, too, that we start young. When some of those protests were happening, the marches happening here in the city, my husband took our 3-year-old son with him and explained, this is what we're doing. And even if they don't fully grasp it, you're starting that. It's a starting point.
It's a seed.
And it's a seed.
It's a seed that you're planting.
Plant that seed, and the younger you start, the more open-minded they'll be, and the more that they'll understand as they grow into adults.
I just wanted to note that we often get caught in this thing where it's a black-white issue, and I often find that it's the black folks who the burden is put on to really engage in these conversations. I don't know how you all feel, but to say, well, that's not right, or I feel this way, but it's not black and white. It's just right and wrong.
One of the pieces that was interesting to me and to some people that I was talking to and interviewing in June, especially about the protests, older black men who had, you know, been a part of the civil rights movement, how important they thought it was that they were seeing young people, but they were seeing young white people standing next to their friends and taking up that fight. The most questions that I got kind of involved Bob, because Bob has been on TV and radio in Columbus for so long. And a lot of people were saying that they didn't, not that long, but you know, they were saying that they didn't realize that Bob had ever experienced racism.
What? Who said that?
And I mean, people, listen, people see Bob and they see Bob on TV and they see Bob as a successful man. They don't even think of him as a successful black man. He's just part of their family, part of their lives. They don't realize the struggle that Bob has gone through and that any person of color has gone through. And so I shared with them some stories that Bob has shared with me over the years, and not stories from just way back, stories from recently where he was profiled. And you should see the look on people's faces when I tell them, you know, Bob Nunley has been profiled by police.
You know, the thing about it is it was a number of times when I used to work at a radio station, and I'd have to drive through a neighborhood that was relatively affluent, relatively white, and I got stopped by the police a couple of different times just because I was driving a nice car in a neighborhood that they didn't think I belonged in. I don't mean to imply that I had a really, really rough way to go. Most people that I've dealt with over the years have been terrific, and I have to say that, and I appreciate that, and I don't want to exploit it or anything, but I think it's nice that people do, you know, appreciate what I do.
Yeah, but I think it's unfortunate, and I have to say, to hear you as the black male elder of this conversation to say that, and I know this, I'd imagine, I don't want to say I know this might not have been the intent, but you don't have to qualify, Bob, your experience. For me, that's how you felt, and I hate to have to hear, I don't know how you feel, to hear that it was nice to be treated fairly or nice to.
It should be a human right.
It should be a human right.
It's basic. You know, I laugh at this, but Dave Chappelle said it best. There was a movement for equal rights. For the LGBTQ community. Back in the 60s, black folks were only asking for civil rights. Just treat me with civility. And we're still stumping for that.
I don't know how you all have been feeling as far as like mental health. I'm not asking specifically about yours, but I'm finding a lot of people talking about mental health more.
Yeah, I found that I made myself find reasons to enjoy little things, like my kids, even when they drive me so crazy, you know, they're happy and they're healthy. My family's been healthy through all of this, and so I've come this year to just learn to appreciate the little things a lot more than I would have last year. And I stop and I find those moments and just really hang on to that, because otherwise, I mean, you'll just drive yourself completely crazy.
I do wonder what's going to happen when we all get back together.
When you're not wearing a mask, because I'm going to smile when you walk past.
That's what I miss the most. You know, when you when you see a stranger, you can't even tell if they're smiling if they say hi to you, because the mask covers that up. And and you're forced to look into somebody's eyes. I want to know how people are going to be when we're now appreciating what we have versus what we don't have. And I'd like to say that if you've just come out of this pandemic, and you haven't changed, you've just wasted God's time. And I do hope that a lot of people just open up and change and listen and be, and just be human and treat everybody else as such.
It's just been really interesting to see a lot of people find their voice during all this too. I really mean that. I mean, there have been people that have kind of sitting by the sidelines maybe, and then they just couldn't take it anymore. And they found their voice. And I'm talking from age 8 to 80, it didn't matter. And whether that was by voting, whether it's going to a protest, whether it's just, talking to their neighbor and saying, we're going to talk about this.
But again, how about those young people, the 18-year-olds who this was their first time voting? I mean, to go through this process, and you got plenty of company at the polls with you.
I'm grateful for that we have this, that we can, share with viewers our thoughts, our hopes, but also our vulnerabilities, because we have them too. We're real people. And Brad, I think you actually talked to some real people right here in Columbus.
Well, we did this summer where I said, how can I contribute a little bit more? And so we worked on a piece that why not a white reporter going out and talking to white people about racism? We did it in the midst of the protest this summer, in the warmth of outside, and tried to get people's reaction to what they were now seeing, this awakening. So I went back out into the cold this time to see whether anything's changed. The summer of discontent. As the pandemic spread, so did the discord in race relations, and whites were confronted with that word.
You can choose to be racist or not to be racist.
And what do you choose?
Not to be racist.
I think to say, I'm not racist is baloney, because I think it's impossible to not be racist.
Seasons change.
No, I don't consider myself a racist and never have considered myself one.
Dee watched the protest raging outside her door. Anything that you've seen over these last several months that would give you an indication we've improved?
No, I see that it's gone downhill. There's break-ins all the time now. There never used to be break-ins.
Dan Brinkman was born and raised in Columbus.
Would have never even crossed my mind had it not happened. So while it was, very unfortunate, everything that has happened, I think some unity has happened.
You think things have gotten better?
Honestly, yeah.
Howard Fracken is a psychologist who now teaches race relations at his church. How are you different?
I think I'm a lot more open to addressing my own attitudes that I grew up with, and being willing to help others now to be able to look at their own prejudices.
Madison Little moved from Indianapolis to Columbus in the midst of the unrest and called the experience positive. Have we improved at all over these last several months?
I would really like to think so. Even though we're not still actively protesting in the streets, I would like to think everyone really learned an important lesson here.
A lesson of acceptance that can get her echoes.
Realization. And then I'm also in the stage of thinking of where I am and what I need to do to make changes, because I want there to be change.
And do you believe that's possible?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
On the heels of a highly divisive election, is this a new beginning?
I'm extremely hopeful that the election will change things. Electing Kamala Harris has been a phenomenal, I didn't think that was even possible, honestly.
Ask me in 2 years, maybe I'll be more optimistic.
Interesting thoughts. Well, since we started the conversation special in June, we have talked to a number of Black community members about how they are feeling right now and the times we live in. Recently, I caught up with a few of them to get their thoughts on if any progress has been made in the last 6 months. We first met Heather Johnson protesting at the State House.
It was 120 days that I was protesting. This was so important to me. I always think about George Floyd calling out for his mother. And that could have been my son.
Now, 6 months later, the mom of 6 is hopeful that her activism paid off and people are more aware of what's going on in their community.
I want everybody to see where they are at personally. We're all going through something, and that's okay. What I want is for us to acknowledge it and for us to be able to say, you know what, I want to make this change.
Deontay Johnson's store sold classics in the short north was looted during the protests in June, but it was his call to action posted on plywood that helped many understand that his frustration wasn't with the looting, it was about much more.
Yeah, man, well, it's been a process. The biggest blessing that I could say is that's come so far is that the conversations are still going, that I believe that people are still doing a lot behind the scenes and it hasn't fizzled or faded away yet. I didn't expect for 6 months later for us to see this big dramatic change, especially dealing with election and all that stuff going on. But I believe that we're going to start seeing it blossom.
We met Austin Smith this summer, a recent graduate of Bexley High School, fighting for changes in his suburban community as part of the Bexley Anti-Racism Project. Now a freshman at Ohio State, he's still fighting and paving the way for younger Bexley Lions to find their voice.
It was a strong moment, but we're trying to make a movement out of it. Now, for one, a lot of Bexley residents that weren't educated before have been taking the steps to educate themselves, which is a good step in the right direction. But on top of education, we need action.
I think I became more confident in speaking about race and talking about how I feel and what's happening and recognizing what's been going on in my life and how racism and microaggressions and things have impacted me. A lot of people who are close to me have reached out to me. I've been able to have more educated conversations with a lot of friends and family. You can see that people's attitudes have changed, whether it's for better or for worse. Can't exactly say, it depends on the person, but attitudes are definitely changing.
But while I may be the first woman in this office, I will not be the last. Because every little girl watching tonight sees that this is a country of possibilities.
No matter what side of the aisle you're sitting on, this is history. The nation's first female VP. She's Asian, she's black, and will be sworn into office next month. This election changed the game for a lot of women and a whole lot of girls out there. They're excited from the classroom to corporate America.
I exhaled. It was a moment where I could just, my shoulders came down and I exhaled. As a woman and as an African American, it was just a moment of finally to be seen, to be valued, and to be recognized was tremendous. It was a vitamin shot for my soul, honestly. So I was excited. I was really fortunate enough to meet Kamala Harris, Vice President-elect Kamala Harris, when she was running for Attorney General in the state of California. I was running for U.S. Senate here in Illinois, and she was running for AG. She came to Chicago for a fundraiser, and someone set up a breakfast for us to meet. And so I met with her, spent time with her in that breakfast, and I just remember being so struck. When you meet someone who's special, and that's how I was struck. This person, this woman, is some kind of special, and it felt like she was ready for the moment then, and she certainly is ready for this moment now.
And that time will be historic because Vice President-elect Kamala Harris, well, her presence and power in the White House will continue to help change the look and makeup of corporate America.
What I think that means is for people in the C-suite, CEOs, chairmen of boards, law firm managing partners, everybody's going to say, I need to have people at this table who represent all of America, because all of America needs to be included in our decision making. I think it's a powerful yet very subtle message. And believe me, it is not lost on corporate America. I hear those conversations every day. How do we diversify our C-suite? It's not just enough to have entry-level people, but how are we making a path for people of color to move up and move into the C-suite? Why don't we have more Black CEOs? Why don't we have more Black chairmen of companies? So I think it started this summer, and she is just going to carry it forward.
So what do you think about all this attention now put on the sororities, the pink and green especially?
Right. The pink and green, right. I am so proud she's my soror. I work with a lot of Delta, so I'm always teasing them about, they'll talk about a Delta here or there. I said, yes, but my soror is the vice president.
And a lot of women and girls, like I said, are laughing. They're smiling about this moment.
Yeah.
Well, I was thinking, as a man of Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated, any other presidents out there? Shout out Brother Bill Clinton. But it's interesting because people are also going, what are they talking about? All these organizations, it's part of the culture.
Absolutely.
We have a lot of fun, talk a lot of trash, but we can come together.
The Divine Nine. Yes, yes.
We mentioned this in our long discussion, didn't make the piece, but it's been a long year. 2020 has been tough in many ways. Obviously, with everything that's going on. I'm so glad we have this venue to be able to do this, and there are many more things we're going to have to be able to talk about. This has been a tough week in Central Ohio, as we all know.
Absolutely. That is one of the things that, you get tired of hearing and seeing on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, another hashtag, another hashtag of yet hashtag another black man dead, another name, another, as I said yesterday, empty seat at the dinner table. Bed never, ever will be slept in again. Yeah. And you just get tired of that. And this week has been heavy because we sit with this, not just as journalists where we have a story to tell, but we're still black.
I said,
we still feel for our black brothers and sisters.
I sat with that mother yesterday, and when I tell you, because you all know how it goes, you do the interview, then you have to listen to the interview. And it replayed all night, 3 o'clock in this morning. It was a struggle.
It's a tough one, but hit us up on our Facebook page as well as NBC4i.com, where you will be able to find this. And we want to hear from you about the conversation.
Yeah, we have a homework assignment of sorts, actually. This is going to be from a December 2nd traffic stop in Delaware County.
Yeah, the driver who has a gun refuses to listen and even threatens to shoot the officer, speeds away. There's a chase, and he's arrested.
So did race play a role in this situation? We hope you, your family, and friends have that conversation.
Hey, get out of the car, man. You got a gun right there.
Whoa, there's rights. There's rights to this. There are rights to this.
Do you have a concealed
There are rights there.
Whoa, get out.
Hold up right there. It's open. My hands are up. My hands are up. No.
No, you got to.
This is on body cam. You have a body cam, sir? Put your hands over your eyes. Do you have a body cam? Put your hand over your eyes. Do you have a body cam, sir? Put your hands over your eyes. I will send this dog on you. I will shoot you if you do.
Don't fucking grab my gun.
You have rights.
Put your hand.
You have rights too. You have rights too. Don't you dare. You have rights. You cannot shoot me here.
You
This is unconstitutional. You know that. Please step out of the car. That's all we're asking you to do. Oh, you're asking me not to step
Yes.
Conceal your weapons, please.
No.
This is how we treat each other civilly. This is not how we act civilly. You know this. Right eye! Right eye!
You got cover?
No. Yes, we do. Don't. Just please. Do you have body cam? Please. Do you have body cam? Do not forcibly remove Don't. Do it. Don't. You know that. That's not.
Please. I need you to get out of the car.
Then house. Hey, I see double blue, sir. Are you going to shoot me on double blue? Just relax. No, just relax. Please get out of the car.
There's rights to this. You know there are rights to this.
Listen, we can figure this out.
We can talk about this.
Don't do it.
Get out of the car.
You're on double blue. You know what's going to happen, right? Just stop.
You need to get out of the car. That's a lawful order. You're going to go to jail.
What, a gunpoint? Oh, take me to jail then. Go ahead.
Just come on. You're obstructing.
I can't. No, you're obstructing. You're pointing a gun at me, sir. Right now my life's in threat.
Okay. Well, we have.
I don't see body cam on this, sir. I'm just going to drive away. I'm not going to bother anybody.
No, you're
Hands
not.
on the seat. Don't do this. Don't do it. Don't.